The story tells us about a guy who received a mystical object and defied the gods. Along the way, incredibly dangerous adventures await him. Enjoy watching. The story begins with showing our hero trapped in a barrier. He tries to get out of it, but nothing comes out. Cursing this place, he begins to gradually disappear, and then a notification comes out in front of him that he died and will soon be returned back in time to the very beginning. The actions are transferred to the city, in the center of which a very large crowd of people gathered. And then there was an alert that the time had finally come, and then the presenter suggested that everyone count down the remaining 5 seconds together. While the people were counting these seconds together, we are shown how a hooded man stood among them, from whom a strange and strong aura emanated. At the 4th second of the report, he opened his eyes and it was clear that this was our hero. Then he woke up as if from a dream and remembered only his death. He realized that he had returned to the time when he was drawn into this game from understanding what his hands were shaking. But he was shaking with anger. As he reached the last 20th round, he clenches his fist and thinks, if he could, he would stop time right now. Then he remembers the notification about the use of the time reversal rune and realizes, since this is the last attempt, then he must go through this game to the end. He takes off his hood and thinks how to do this. He needs to take 4 people with him to the final round, and then begins to look around asking one question, with whom it is best to team up. A few minutes later, we are shown a young and disgruntled guy, unhappy because of the screams that they will soon become adults. The young guys shout how they will no longer need fake documents, and another confirms this. The guy watching this is wondering what he should do after graduation, try to become a food delivery guy. And then he asks the disgruntled Yong Nim what he will do, which he asks about. Yong Nim recalls, as he already said, that he would become a gangster, and his friends were surprised to say how he could die because of the slightest mistake, and asked him again if he was joking by the hour. Then the guy answers how he doesn't care about it, because he believes that they live once and he just wants to live his own way. In response, the guys laugh, saying that he is crazy, but they think to themselves what a psycho he really is, and decide that they need to break up with him immediately after graduation. After that, he is asked about one guy, what will be the errand boy after graduation? Then Yong Nim remembers about Nate and clarifies, does he mean about this beggar and gloomy bastard? Then he replies that he can't let him go just because he's graduating. Then others say how sorry they are for him and bet on how he thought everything would end after graduation. They also notice how the devil himself is in the flesh. Then this Yong Nim says how he has no right to decide when everything is over. He will be his toy for as long as possible. Then one of that bunch sharply notices something and says, isn't this the guy running errands? At the same moment, the 5-second report began, and then Yong Nim smiles and confirms that it is him. While the time report was going on, he noticed a strange energy coming from this guy. In fact, it was our hero who had just returned from the future. As soon as the report ended, he took off his hood and glanced at Yong Nim, who noticed something was wrong as usual and talks about it. They started congratulating everyone on the new year, but Yong Nim lost his temper because he did not like the look of our hero, and he wanted to remind him how to be afraid of him, while wondering if he had lost his fear. What was he staring at him for? At this point, his friends stop him, saying that he let him go. Since it's New Year's Eve, another confirms this, since he has plenty of time to finish him off later. After that, Yong Nim calms down and talks about how he can live in peace today, after which they realize that they are finally an adult and congratulate each other on the new year, and they hope that all their wishes will come true. At this moment, suddenly someone starts talking about how funny people are, celebrating the new year without knowing what position they are in. Yong Nim thought it was one of his own people who said it and ran over one of his guys, but he denies it. And then another guy from their group says he just heard something and looks at the sky. There was an angel girl watching people, and added that to see people in complete shock, as if she was watching monkeys in a cage. At that moment, everyone turned their attention to the angel. Then people thought that this was another New Year's event from the TV station. Someone noticed if someone had told him that it was real, he would have believed. Someone greatly admired the beauty of the angel. Our hero watched all this surprise, and then he himself drew attention to her, thinking to himself that she had finally appeared, and even after the 99th time, he still hated watching it all. Then, with difficulty restraining laughter, the angel turns to people calling them rubbish, and notices how they are all amazed by her beauty, but they do not think about anything strange. She is not going to mess with parasites like them. And then she begins to smile arrogantly, adding how their reaction shows her that they can hear her voice. At the same moment, one of the people breaks down and screams at the angel. He asks what she is doing here, and is she really cosplaying an angel, and what about parasites? While this man insulted the angel, thinking that she was talking complete nonsense, our hero stood quietly and thought what kind of shame this man was producing now. Angel smiled for a couple of seconds and then abruptly changed her face, telling him that he was annoying. At the same second, that man's head exploded. Blood flew around and fell on people standing nearby, which caused one of them to start screaming in horror. Yong-nim, who was watching this, was very surprised and did not understand what had just happened. But an angel with a terrifying aura asked how dare an insignificant human being talk to a higher being like that. People started to panic when they heard a strange sound. And at this time the angel tells everyone, they, the people, have no right to ask her questions. Do not dare to behave as if they are on the same level, unless they want to die like that guy with the severed head. She also notices how sure she is that they are all confused by the current situation, after which she asks the question, do insignificant people have any ideas about what is happening? Since no one could even imagine what was happening, she decides to explain it to them in simple language, so they need to listen very carefully. Our hero began to sigh, thinking that he would have to listen to this explanation again. Then the angel announces that they are going to start the game right now. After that, on the first day of each month for 20 rounds, the people will be spiritually transported to a new dimension to play the game, where they will need to do just one thing, namely, complete the quest. All the people were shocked and did not really understand what she was talking about, but listen carefully, the angel continued to tell. If people complete the quest, they can return to reality with rewards. Yong-nim was standing and also didn't really understand what was happening, but the people nearby were quietly discussing what she was talking about. Then one of the people suggested that she would leave them alive if they completed several quests. At the same moment, Angel suggested how they could say something like that. She would let them live if they completed several quests, but not all would survive simply because they completed the quest. She notices that only half of the participants will remain alive, but our hero, who was watching her, already knew all about it, while others could not believe and did not want to. Then the angel asked them not to worry and said that she would not take all the people standing here, and then people could not understand what exactly she meant. She further explains that only people between the ages of 15 and 29 from all over the planet will become participants. At this moment, our hero thought when he was drawn into this game for the first time on New Year's Eve, he could not have thought that this would happen 100 times. Also at the same second, one of the old men standing in the crowd begins to rejoice greatly, since he did not pass by age and everything will be fine with him. But the person standing next to him and falling under the selection criteria attacked the old man with the question, is he really so lucky to stay alive? Then why tease them? But he is abruptly stopped by Yong-nim and reminds of what is happening here. He also reminds of the man to whom the angel tore off his head with one look. At the same second, the angel says, according to the final calculations, the number of participants is 1,801,029,290 people. Then, after all the discussions and explanations, she says, since she has finished explaining, it is time to start the game, and after that she raises her hand and transfers all the participants of the game to another world. We are shown our hero standing in a hall where there is nothing and everything is white, and it seemed that there were no walls, no floor, nothing. At the same time, the angel addresses everyone and tells how people are now in space and cannot see each other. The guy opens his eyes and appears in front of him like a mirror. The angel says after the spiritual movement, they need to create an avatar and let them consider it a kind of settings. They also have only one chance for this, and therefore let them choose carefully. But our hero, without thinking twice, decides to do everything as usual, and creating a character, he immediately chooses his nickname or alias for this game. He calls himself Black Braid. Then he is transferred, and we are shown a beautiful field among the forest and mountains. It is in the middle of the field that our hero appears in his avatar, under the nickname Black Braid. Having appeared in this place, he thinks how he will do it for the 100th time. He has been using this avatar since the 12th rebirth, so he feels like a real body. At this time, many other participants begin to appear on the field. One by one, they appear and wonder where they are now. Someone was surprised that his body had really changed. Someone tells how he decided to try the face of a celebrity and asked the opinion of another player, who confirmed that it really works. Black Scythe watched everyone else and thought that everyone was trying to look their best. But if he has even a drop of brains, he would never do that, since only the strongest will survive in this world. The more beautiful he is, the more likely he is to die. If you die in this world, then you will die in the present. Then he turns his attention to something else, thinking that in any case, the time has almost come, and notices that he is here, namely Hwang Young-min, whom his friends previously called Young Min. His body was pumped up and beautiful. He stood out from the rest of the people. And then our hero with a tired face thinks, as this time he chose a muscular body again. Then the angel turns to everyone and notices what joyful faces they all have. They must be happy with the new incarnations of their bodies. She also likes to see their distorted faces from fear. Then he looks at the list of people, and there are now 1,802,910 people on the field. He assumes that this is exactly the number in Seoul, where she appeared. People were surprised by such a large number, and someone said, "If you look at it, it doesn't look like there are such a huge number of people here." The angel replies that she expected this from insignificant people. Do they really think that this is the only dimension? At the same moment, she gets angry and says that the people passing the round are scattered on different planes with other angels, so it's better to focus on herself. Then she comes to her senses and speaks in essence of the game. Before they start, she will explain something to them. First, she asks them to think about their status window, which is what the black braid does, and this window appears in front of him. In it, we see the real name of our hero, and his name was Ryu Min, under the nickname Black Scythe. His rank was a beginner. He also had the first level, and there was no class. Titles were also missing. There were only 4 characteristics, namely strength, intelligence, dexterity, luck. All his characteristics were 3 points each. There were also skills and unique skills that he did not have. Then his runes were written, which also did not exist. At the end of the window, there was an item about additional skills. They opened at the 10th, 20th, 40th, 6th, and 99th levels. This status window greatly upset our hero, since he is already starting everything from the beginning for the 100th time. At this time, the angel asks if everyone has already looked at their status window. She further explains that if they used to play games, they realized how insignificant they are now, and urges them to become stronger. Also, if they survive and clear 20 rounds, they will not only be freed from the game of survival, but also fulfill their desire. Then all the people immediately noticed the desire and could not believe her words. And then someone suggested that in order to get it, you need to become number 1. The angel adds that at the end, let them say inventory and look inside, since she has prepared a gift for everyone. Young Min calls up his inventory window and is surprised. There was a fragment of a random rune lying there. Then the angel explains, as they already see, there is a fragment of a random rune that can only be used once. They can use it at the first level, and it's the only item they were given at the beginning to use it. They just have to take it in their hand and think about using it. Young Min does this and thinks about using this rune, as a result of which the rune disappears in his hands. Then the angel notices and says, judging by the expression on their faces, not everyone was lucky. Whatever they got, you need to rejoice at the result. It's just luck that fell to the lot of people. Then she adds, since the binding of the runes is completed, it's time to start the show, and then she abruptly clicks her fingers, which causes a window to appear in front of all the players. It was a quest window in which it was written that everyone should kill 100 goblins. Then it was written for all regions in which the number of all players in the whole world stood. Their number was 1,801,029,290, and only 90,514,645 players can pass. In the current region, in which our hero was located, there were only 10,286 people, of which only 5,143 people can pass. Abruptly, the first goblin appears outside the window of the quest, and he was only 1. Then everyone paid attention to him, realizing that this is the goblin, which is why everyone made sure that they were in the game. Many began to worry and assumed that this was a new development of virtual reality, and they were kidnapped by BA without their knowledge and are now being checked. But the angel began to answer that they should not worry, since not all goblins had been called yet, and immediately after that goblins began to appear one after another. This shocked many. They could not believe what they were seeing. People began to panic because of the number of goblins who wanted to kill them. At this moment, the angel said with arrogance and terrifying mockery, 10,000 people against 50,000 goblins, so let them fight to the death. At the same second, the goblin was thrown into an attack on people like animals, but people did not know what to do or how to be at all. They began to shout and ask not to come closer, but one of the players calmly passed through the crowd and eventually came forward. It was Ryu-min, who was calmly heading to meet the goblins. Then everyone paid attention to him, thinking that something was wrong with him. Since he was going straight at the monsters, he was called and asked to wait because it was dangerous. But our hero did not listen and just ignored everyone. As soon as the goblins were too close, our hero immediately changes his face and attacks one of them and takes him off his feet. At that moment, he thought that when he first got into a group or organization, the first impression was very important, and then he decided that he needed to leave his mark on their minds. That's why he decided to show what a person who has reached the 20th round and has been reborn for the 100th time is capable of. All this so that annoying flies do not approach him. So you need to show your strength. At the same time, he pulls out a dagger after taking out the first goblin. He also understood that the most important thing now is to attract the attention of that creature from above. Then he meant the angel himself and looked directly at her. To do this, you need to arrange something like a performance, which is why he decided to attack the goblins ahead of everyone, who at that second had already attacked him, but he attacked them with incredible speed and killed them. Everyone watched him in surprise and couldn't believe their eyes. They were interested in who he was. Many thought he was from the special forces or something like that. Then they noticed his alias Black Braid, which also sounded cool to everyone. Meanwhile, some goblins have already approached other people, and they paid attention to them. They thought that these were the weakest mobs in the game, and then decided that they could also kill them, even if not as easily as the Black Scythe. But still many assumed that they were not so strong if they'll start fighting. But before he could move, a goblin rushes at one of the players and pierces him with his knife, which kills him. This shocked the man standing next to him, and then all confidence went away from the player. In a panic, they began to run away like the last cowards, asking to be saved, because the goblins ran away again. While our hero was killing goblins one by one, he looked back and saw how the rest of the goblins staged a real massacre. Then he thought, now no one considers it a game. Now they think only about one thing, namely survival. Their survival instinct will dominate in their mind. They will be busy trying to escape. Then he remembered how in the first rebirth he did the same. Only after the second rebirth, he realized that there was no point in running away from this field. And right at this moment, one of the players, running away, crashes into an invisible wall enclosing this entire territory. Then she began to examine it and did not understand what it was. At that moment, she was noticed by one of the players, who was able to lay down one goblin and was going to finish it off, starting to tremble violently. Watching this, our hero thought, for a modern person who is not able to kill even a small animal, it will be difficult to kill a goblin. But in order to survive in this game, you need to overpower yourself. Otherwise, the opposite will happen, which happened to a guy who was trembling and could not overpower himself, because the goblin woke up and attacked him. And the answer is, that's why everyone here has to overcome themselves. Meanwhile, an angel watched this carnage and laughed a lot, having fun. It was funny for her to watch this fight between humans and goblins. Although they are small in stature, when they attack in a pack, it is difficult to fight them off, especially if they have a dagger. But she turned her attention to another person, namely Ryu-mina, and wondered who this man was. She opened the quest progress window. It was written there how the Black Scythe had already killed 70 goblins out of 100. She was also angry because of the system of this game, because she hid all information about the players except the progress of the quest for her. But she resigned herself to this, since controlling these lower creatures hurts her pride of the highest creation. But seeing such an amazing man, she thinks how she enjoys watching him a little. After a while, our hero finishes off another goblin and an alert is displayed to him about the victory over the goblins. He gets about 4% experience plus, gold plus 10. Thereby his level was increased, but he killed only 75 goblins out of 100. To complete the quest he needs to kill another 25 out of 100. We are shown how he easily dodges the attacks of goblins, and then shows how a group of goblins comes at him, deciding to attack all together at once. But without blinking an eye, he kills 4 goblins at once in the blink of an eye. Then he stopped, twirling his dagger in his hand and heading towards the last goblin of their group, making a finishing blow at him, after which she looked ahead and asked, "Is anyone else?" The goblins were scared when they saw a man in front of them who looked like a monster more than them. But then our hero thought that for now he could take a break and open his status window. They show that nothing has really changed except for his level and unused points due to raising the level. Ryu Ming was surprised that he instantly rose to the 4th level. He decides to invest all 6 points in dexterity, and at the same time remembers that for increasing the level, you can get 2 points of characteristics. In addition to increasing the chance to dodge an attack, dexterity also increases the attack speed and movement speed. And at the beginning of the game, dexterity is the most important characteristic. He waves his dagger, shaking off the goblin blood, and thinks that with such progress he should attract the attention of an angel. And therefore it's time to finish. The goblins in parallel retreat, looking at our hero, but abruptly a dagger flies into one of them in the head. Ryu Ming fixed this dagger and asked the goblin standing in front of the others, wouldn't he attack him? But the monsters were scared and realized that they could not cope with him, after which Ryu Min decides something because of their passivity. He abruptly shuffles behind their backs and takes the dagger from the corpse of the goblin he launched it at earlier and says that if they do not want to attack him first, then they will have to. He should attack first. The Howlands realized that they had no real choice left and therefore decided to take a risk, as they wanted to survive. But before he could turn around, he cuts them all with one swing, after which he gets more experience and gold. As a result of this attack, he raised his level and completed the quest by killing 100 goblins out of 100. He also completed his first round in this game. While receiving all this, he thought how successfully he passed the first stage. The reason why he crushed goblins like crazy was to attract the attention of an angel. But there is also another reason. At this moment, he receives another notification as he is congratulated because he completed the task and took the first place. The region. Then I show him the window of the first round in which his time of passing this round was written, namely 10 minutes and 21 seconds. He was pleased with the result as he was aiming for the first place, and he also thought that it was necessary to complete the quests of each round as quickly as possible, because the top 3 receive awards depending on their status. He also receives a message from the system that he has received a low-ranked rare weapon ticket as a reward for first place in the current region. He also remembers that awards are given depending on the status in the current region and in the entire region, and being in the first place in the entire region. He also receives a message how he received a chest to choose a special award as for the first place in the entire region. It is for the first place that you can get the best, compared to the rest of the awards. While he was looking at his rewards in the rewards inventory, he thought, first he uses the ticket for the weapon he received as the current region, after which he clicks on the ticket and receives a message how he can choose one of the rare weapons. He gets 3 weapons from which he can choose only one, and the system asks him to touch the desired reward, which makes him a little sad since he expected more rewards, but nothing to do with it, and he decides to choose one of the items. As a result, he chooses a stiletto, as a result of which he received it. It was written in the description that this is a rare item that gives 15 damage and adds 1 point for dexterity. Also, the strength of the item was 150 out of 150. It was also mentioned that beginners and players of higher rank can use this item. It was written in the description itself. This is the best weapon among daggers, can be used by beginners. After our hero received his weapon, he threw away the initial weapon with which he killed goblins. He also thought to himself that he would keep the chest with the choice that he received as a special reward for the entire region for now. While the carnage was happening around him, he opens the status window and starts thinking about his title, which he had before. In all 99 attempts, he did not see it. Then he decides to use a random fragment of the rune And after that, the system congratulated him. Since he received the time reversal rune, the resulting rune will be automatically engraved on the player's body. The remnants of the received rune are now in the player's soul. Due to the special properties of the rune, the engraving failed. Ryu-min had expected such a result in the end. If he could engrave it again, he would be able to go back in time an infinite number of times. At that moment, the system informs him that thanks to the remnants of the rune engraved in his soul, he was recognized as a time traveler who had made 100 trips, which Ryu-min did not understand. As a result, he receives his first title in this life, namely, he received the Last Time Traveler, which surprises our hero very much. In this game, the concept of title stands above the runes. Then we are shown a description of the title itself. The condition for obtaining this title is 100 runes of time reversal. The effect that the title gave was this: after dying, it is resurrected in the form of a spirit and remains so for a minute if desired. You can resurrect and restore HP, a one-time ability. After the resurrection, the title disappears. Our hero's surprise can be understood from the description of the title he just received, since they are much stronger than runes and much more difficult to obtain. In addition to everything, resurrection is a skill that only a priest can get, and the skill has a facet, restoring a maximum of 30% HP after resurrection. However, his title associated with resurrection will restore him to full health, which pleases our hero, because he understands how he got something incredible, and in general, it is always good to have such a trump card up his sleeve. Then he began to get tired and thought it was time for others to finish the task. He wondered if Young-min, whom he knows from real life, was okay. Next, we are shown Young-min himself, who was in the heat of battle, and Ryu-min realized from Young-min's condition that she would still be able to survive. Then more and more players complete the quest given by the angel, and then she watches it and says, no wonder it got more and more boring. She told people, calling them pathetic as usual, that they were dying and still couldn't match the numbers of the goblins. It seemed to be her mistake, which made her wonder if she could have more fun. One of the players, who was holding a dead comrade in her arms and was in complete shock from which she could not move away, hardly repeated the words of the angel, not understanding what she was talking about. Immediately after that, the bodies of her comrade and the rest of the dead people began to slowly disappear along with the goblins. No one understood what was happening. But suddenly more goblins began to appear in front of the crowd of people. This time there were many times more of them, and more beastly, which scared the remaining players very much. But Angel took great pleasure in saying that she would give them another 50,000 goblins for fun, and she thought that would be enough. Since the players had no other choice, they rushed into battle shouting to kill all the goblins. Then there was only blood and screams, a lot of blood. People and goblins died one after another. It was necessary to kill 5,000 goblins, and after a while people killed only 1,000. You could see how Young-min used others as a human shield. Someone lost control of himself and already killed these goblins with his bare hands. So people reached 2,000 goblins killed, while our hero was sitting and resting in the area that was protected by the field. Someone who completed the quest was also sitting in such a zone watching this madness. They watched as the goblins simply killed the rest before their eyes, enjoying it. So the players reached 3,500. Angel was pleased with the sight of pathetic people in her opinion, and did not understand that our hero was watching her, who also had something in mind. And that's how it all ended. In the end, the system notified everyone about the 5,143 goblins killed. Some who were not yet in a separate field after completing the quest were still waving goblins, and did not understand where they abruptly disappeared. They turned around trying to find more monsters, but no one was there anymore. People did not understand where they all disappeared, after which the angel takes his word and says, only half of them have completed the quest, and those who did not pass must die. This shocked the remaining players, but Angel said that these are the rules of this game, and after that all the players who did not complete the quest began to disappear just like corpses before. They asked them to spare them, addressing the angel as a lady. Someone asked to let him kill another goblin. In hysterics, they asked for anything not to die. But this did not change anything, and the completed quest people watched as their comrades simply disappeared in screams. Angel doesn't understand why everyone is so sullen. They should be glad that they survived, although it doesn't matter either, because they survived and therefore they can return home before the next round. She also congratulated everyone on passing the next round. She hoped they would try better next time, after which she suggested taking stock before their return. Opening the results window of the first round, you could see how our hero took the first place under the nickname Black Scythe. He completed the quest in 10 minutes and 21 seconds. The second place was occupied by a man under the nickname Stupid Idiots, completing the quest in 16 minutes and 15 seconds. The third place was occupied by a man under the nickname Heavenly Demon, completing the quest in 17 minutes and 7 seconds. These were statistics in all regions. But in the region where our hero was located, the first place was also occupied by a Black Scythe. The second place was occupied by a man under the nickname Life is a Documentary, after completing the quest in 23 minutes and 55 seconds. The third place was occupied by a man with the nickname Black Dragon in his right hand, after completing the quest in 24 minutes and 43 seconds. The system also wrote that the Black Scythe took first place in the entire region and in the current region, which is why it receives awards. Then it was written how he received a ticket for weapons that he had already used and a chest. It was also written as a reward for the offset was not taught in the form of 1,000 gold coins, but in the near future he will receive the reward for the cleanup. Immediately after that, the guy receives an alert that he received 1,000 gold coins for completing the quest, which he is congratulated for. He can also use gold in the store to buy items. The store function will be unlocked at the 10th level. Ryumin immediately looked around, noticing how the exfoliated cast glances at him. And then he realized, now everyone knows that he is the first in the ranking, which pleased him. Angel, meanwhile, says how she cannot believe that the first in the ranking of the entire region, a native of her region, is amazing to her. After which he asks Blackbraid to answer her question, to which he agrees. She asked where he got such power from, assuming that he got some kind of rune or something, but then realized that she almost gave out that she couldn't look at the personal data of the players, which was why our hero asked, can't she look at his status window? She could not immediately give an answer, but after calmly lied as best she could. It was impossible that she, an angel, could not look at information about him, and she just wanted to check him in this way. Ryumin smiles back at her, but he actually knows that this is not the case. After which he turns to her and she is interested in what he wants. Then he asks if he can ask for something. She did not immediately understand him, and then our hero says, it seems that the reward for the first place in the rating is slightly meager. And at that moment everyone around was shocked by what he said, because it was as brazen as possible for a person who knows the power of an angel. Also, these words seriously angered Angel, and she hardly lost her temper, deciding to ask what he had just said. Then, full of confidence and arrogance, our hero replies that he hoped she would give him a better reward for first place. She was flying right above him, and he was looking at her without turning away. The angel was very angry at such arrogance. She did not understand how this man dared to ask her for such a thing. She thought she would keep an eye on him, since he was active from the very beginning. But he dares to look down on her since he killed a bunch of goblins. She decides to take his head off because she is amused by this arrogance. But she cannot do this, and remembers how she has already used this one-time ability to kill. She is furious that she cannot kill him. But abruptly she understands something and abruptly changes her mood to a more contented one, because now she knows exactly what to give this little man. If he wants the best reward, then she will give it to him. Normally she would just reject such a request, but not this time. And then she lands on him and tells him how she thinks about his request and offers to move to another place to talk face to face, and orders the rest to stand still and wait. After that, they went somewhere passing by the other players, who could not believe that she would really give him something special, and did not believe at all that bargaining with the angel worked, after which they decided to try to bargain themselves, because everyone wanted something special. But someone said that it's all because he took first place in the ranking. Everyone was jealous and interested in what he would get for bargaining with the angel. Passing by Yongmin, our hero glanced at him, which Yongmin himself did not understand, and just watched them leave. Then Angel and Ryumin went deep into the forest, and then Angel turns to our hero, not understanding why he is so far away from her. Because of this, she has to constantly look around and asks him to come closer. Meanwhile, she is angry that she has to shout at him to listen to her. She believes that for her race, which does not know how to listen, they are too greedy. Then she began to think how she could change the reward at all if she was not in charge here. That is, even if she could, she would not do it since he just had to take what was given to him, and she decides to show him what happens to the greedy unsecured. She decides to kill him as soon as they pass the stone in front, although there is a high probability that something will go wrong if she kills a player for personal reasons without a one-time ability. That if then the players complain about the injustice and start a riot, then people can force her to take responsibility because her actions would ruin the game, which is why she decides she doesn't need witnesses. Having come up with this whole idea, she does not hold back a smile and thinks how pathetic and stupid Ryu-min is, and if he had not shown, then nothing would have happened. After that, she turns to him right at the stone and asks the question, what kind of reward would he like to receive, and asked him to answer. What kind of reward does he need? Before she can fully turn around to him, she sees a fist right in front of her face, which eventually hits her with all its force. From the force of the blow, she flies back and falls without realizing what just happened. And then she falls to the ground. On the ground, she comes to her senses. Her nose bled from the blow and wonders what kind of madness is this? She was hit by an ordinary little man? Then he turns around from arrogance and wanted to kill our hero for such arrogance, but as a result, he was not where he was before. She did not understand what was happening and where he disappeared to. At the same second, he appeared behind her and grabbed her wings, which again Angela did not understand. Then he begins to pull her wing away from her body in order to eventually tear it off. The angel begins to panic, and she asks him to stop, not understanding what he wants to do. But Ryu-min doesn't listen to her and tears off her wing, which shocks her even more. He tells her to stop whining already. Then he takes her second wing and decides to tear it off too, which creates an unbearable pain for her, from which she screams hysterically. Having torn off the second wing, he is sure that she will definitely not escape now. She looks at him and shakes in pain at the same time. Stained with her golden blood, she also wonders if it hurt her, to which she responds positively. Then he tells her a couple more minutes, and she would ask him this stupid question. She would probably laugh nastily, but she does not understand what he's talking about, asking if he is crazy and what he is talking about. But she shows a dagger hidden in the wing that he tore off and says she would have tried to kill him with a dagger hidden in the wing, wouldn't she? But she doesn't answer him, because he hit the nail on the head with his assumption, threw out her wing, replies that her silence is consent, and then she asks, what does he mean by that? Trying to justify himself by saying that there was no such thought. But the guy looking at her as if he knew something and smiling at the same time says that she should stop lying, since everything is written on her face, and calls her by the name of Biriel. She is shocked by this, because none of the guys knew her name, and she decides to ask how he knows her name. But he decides not to answer her, saying that she does not need to know this, and at the same time takes out his newly received stiletto. And then, in a panic, Biriel screams and asks what he is going to do with this weapon in his hands. He replies that she herself guesses what he is going to do, but she thinks that he is crazy. Is he really tired of living? She keeps shouting at him that she will kill him with one wave of her hand, but he is sure of it, because he knows how she used a one-time ability, and his rightness pisses her off. Then she breaks down and screams at him how she won't get away with it. Her colleagues won't let her get away with it, but it doesn't scare him, since she doesn't really have any colleagues. He replies that all angels are selfish, caring only about their own well-being, and he doubts that they will even lift a finger even if he dies. But she answers him uncertainly that this is all nonsense. Well, Ryu-min doesn't care anyway, and he's tired of talking, and now he's going to get rid of her. But she asks him to stop saying that it's not profitable for him, but he tells her how wrong she is. She keeps saying that he will bitterly regret if he kills her, then he will not be able to return home. But our hero knows about the system that works automatically. He will return home automatically at the end of the round, but she does not understand how he knows all this. Then she decides to say the following. She promises to give him any information, just let him let her go. Again, he is not interested. Then he tells her that if he needed information, he would simply extract from you all the necessary information, the habitat of their species, the meaning of the essence, that they are nothing more than pawns in a big game, disenfranchised guides. At this moment, all this information shocks her, and at the same second, he pierces her with his stiletto, after which she dies falling to the ground. Then he receives a message from the system. It was written there how she killed an angel, and then writes how she became the first player to kill an angel. As a reward, he receives the title, the First Angel Killer. Also as a reward for killing the first angel, she receives the blood of an angel. Our hero expected that this time he would be the first to kill an angel, and he also receives the Assassin's Rune as a reward for killing an angel, after which the resulting rune was automatically engraved on the user's body. Then Ryu-min thought, these are the rewards the user who killed the angel gets. Then they show us the title window. The title, The First Angel Killer. The condition for obtaining it is to be the first user to kill an angel. Gives the effect that during a battle with sacred entities, the user's stats are doubled. Then our hero remembers how he first found out about them, taking revenge on an angel in his 13th attempt. After all, only one user can receive these awards. Next, we are shown the description window of the Assassin's Rune, which gives the effect that with each kill stats increased by 1%, the maximum can be 100%. Progress is saved until the end of the round. Then it becomes clear that each of the rewards is comparable in usefulness to a unique item. While he looks at the status window, he thinks if the angels knew that he had already received the rune, they would be shocked. But his main attention falls on one object. The main reason for the angel's murder is the golden bottle in which the angel's blood was, after which the window of the object itself is shown. The angel's blood item was a type of consumable and a unique rank. It had the effect of changing the user's class to Reaper, but there was a limit to the use of the 10th level. At the end, it was explained that the item that the user receives the first to kill an angel. Only the first angel killer is worthy of becoming their natural enemy, the Reaper. Then our hero remembers how all players can get a class after getting the 10th level. There are 30 different classes in total. They are also easy to change. For this, you need to get a class change item. It is usually easy to get it during hunting or after fulfilling simple conditions. But there are exceptions. We are talking about unique classes that are given only to one user under special circumstances. And of course, unique and ordinary classes are heaven and earth. Bonus stats, improvement runes, development branches, and so on. In general, there are striking differences. While our hero was looking at the inventory window, he was thinking to himself how he returned without even clearing the first round. First, he uses the reward for first place in all regions. He decides to open a chest with awards for first place in all regions. Then he gets 3 awards and is asked to choose one of them. He could get information about the second round or a buff for more experience for the second round or 2,000 gold. The most important thing for our hero right now is to reach the 10th level as soon as possible and change classes. And as a result, he chooses to increase experience for the second round, so he is notified how the buff will be automatically applied at the beginning of the second round. He decides so because this is his last attempt, so no half measures. While the angel was disappearing, he realized that he had to become stronger by any means available. Then he receives a message that the first round was over, and the number of people who passed this round, also his soul will be returned to a real body. The beginning of the second round will be on February 1st, 2023. At the end, he was congratulated and returned to reality. At that moment, Young-min woke up after the round and saw in front of him the square where he and his friends celebrated the New Year. Then everyone woke up and did not understand what had just happened. Slowly, everyone began to come to their senses and talk about how they lost consciousness for a short time. They had a realistic dream. Someone's head was going to explode. Young-min himself thought that it was all a dream and he was very strange. Then he looks at his phone and checks the time, after which he realizes that exactly as much time has passed as in his dream. Then his friends wake up and complain about a headache and that his body is numb. Young-min turns to his friends who did not understand what happened to them. But Young-min tells them that not only they, but everyone is here. Everyone began to realize that they passed out at the same time losing consciousness. Then they tell how they saw such a wonderful dream and ask Young-min about it. He confirms this, but then adds that he thinks it wasn't a dream, since everyone around started waking up and telling the same dream. And then everyone understood how everything was for real. It was the goblins and the first round in general, after which it dawned on people that they would most likely go on the 1st of February, and this upset many. Suddenly, Young-min's company notices how their friend does not wake up, and Young-min asked about it. But the others do not know about it. They start to wake him up, but he does not answer. They turned him upside down and saw how his body turned pale, as if the soul had left this body forever, and then one of their group gets it. From understanding, he begins to shake, after which he says how the guy is not breathing and there is no pulse, after which Young Min asks directly, "Is Taeshik dead?" But his friends don't believe it. They just can't believe how he died in the game and therefore didn't wake up. Then Young Min assumes that all those who didn't wake up now, then they're all dead. While everyone was in shock and one of Young Min's friends was talking about how only half survived and started thinking about the second round, where it would be exactly the same. At this moment, Young Min begins to shake and continues to smile because of his nerves. He thinks that all this is some kind of madness. Then it dawned on him that all this meant one thing. Now they were all equal. No more outrages about the unfairness of life. Then he turns to one of his friends and tells him to calm down and asks if we just need to survive. Why is he so stressed? But the other one notices how unfair it is, because they are not even given a chance to play out normally. But Young Min concerns everyone. They are not the only ones, and then asks, "So what's unfair?" But his friends look at him with horror, thinking how sick he is. But then they remember how he was a hop from the alley all his life, so he has nothing to lose, even if he dies today, but they still have a lot to do. Then they, from the group, notice how he is looking for someone and asks about it, to which he receives the answer that Young Min cannot find that guy running errands. Then Young Min, looking around, thought where could he have gone? Before he lost consciousness, he saw him in that direction. Did he not even survive the first round and leaned back? Then he understands himself. It's quite natural. Ryu Min is a complete weakling. It's not surprising if he died one of the first. Abruptly at this point, he notices a man in a medium-sized armor from some game and then wonders if this guy has kicked off. And where did he get such clothes from? Because of this, something comes to him, and he decides to check by thinking about the status window, after which his status window appears in front of him, and this surprises him. As a result, the whole dream turns out to be not a dream, and the others also open their status windows and wonder about it. But Young Min does not understand why he is staring into the void, but they ask him the same thing. As a result, they find out that the other player cannot see the other's statuses, and also wonder if they exist in reality. Many were very surprised by this, and assumed that the items and statuses could be transferred to the real world. And then Young Min does not hesitate to take a pebble, and decides to test his strength. He was able to easily crush this pebble into the sand, which makes him happy, and he replies how amazing it is. Further on, the news tells how something incredible happened at dawn today. On the square in front of Zhongro, during the greeting of the new year, 10,000 citizens lost their lives at the same time under the ringing of bells. And now the presenter offers to take a closer look at the scene. An unidentified woman dressed in an angel costume descended from the sky during the New Year's Eve ceremony and spoke to the citizens. Shortly after that, a woman dies from damage as a result of the explosion. Right before that, a citizen points at her with his finger and says some words. After that, the woman stretches out her hands to the observers, thereby forcing about 10,000 people to lose consciousness at the same time. According to the data provided by law enforcement agencies, the majority of those who have lost their jobs fall into the age range from 15 to 29 years old. And it became known that this was happening all over the world. Then we were shown comments on this. In them, people did not understand what kind of nonsense the reporters were telling and why they were spinning this nonsense in urgent news. Someone thinks that today is the 1st of April. Someone writes like more than 1.5 billion coverage and just, I can't believe that the spread of fake news has reached such proportions. Then there were comments. As a reporter, apparently there is nothing to score the broadcast with at all, since such an obvious untruth is allowed in the news. Someone wrote that there are a lot of graphics on this video. Someone wrote how the war of commentators broke out and noticed how someone says to run away urgently, but someone simply did not believe and died. Our hero considered all these comments on the phone going home and thought how the whole discussion of this had already begun and understood how this was just the beginning. The reporter went on to say that at 5:20 about half of those who lost consciousness woke up. The remaining half is in a comatose state. Some have already been diagnosed with brain death. A celebrity is found dead on the playground. This is an unprecedented crisis. 11% of the population died overnight. Our hero thought, The article about what happened and about the deaths began to come out one after another. But the real problem is not that, but that the stats of the players are transferred to the real world, and in parallel, the reporter tells how the survivors call themselves players. They're already figuring out the reasons. Ryu Min thinks that so far no one has particularly high stats, so the problem is not particularly noticeable at the moment, but with increasing levels, players will become extraterrestrial entities. Usually, people will not be able to oppose such players. No modern weapon is able to stop the player. The Earth learns unmanageable superhumans, and he does not plan to sit back and watch the world plunge into chaos. If you let everything take its course, by the 20th round, the players will defeat everything, and there is only one way out. Ryu Min is going to take other players under his control, becoming an order of magnitude stronger than all the others. Of course, he will have to use different ways to gain strength and apply the experience gained in previous attempts. It was then that he remembers standing before the final round, and it took 5 people to enter the boss room. Thinking about it, he knows several suitable people with excellent potential, and he has already figured out how to recruit them but still act. But for now, he has one more important thing to do.